Welcome to the channel The Coins Era. And let me ask you something. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people walk past pennies without a second thought, toss them into jars, or leave them on the counter at gas stations. But what if I told you that one specific penny from 1981 could be worth an absolutely staggering $175 million? Yes, you heard that right. $175 million for a coin that most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the ground. This isn't some fantasy or clickbait. This is the real deal, a genuine treasure hiding in plain sight. And before we dive deep into why this 1981 Lincoln penny is so incredibly valuable, I need you to do something for me. Stick around until the very end of this video, because after we uncover the secrets of this 1981 penny, I'm going to reveal two more pennies that are even more mind-blowing. One from 1980 and another from 1969. And trust me, when I say the values on those will leave you absolutely speechless. But I can't reveal those numbers just yet because the suspense is part of the journey. Now, let's talk about 1981, a year that might seem ordinary to most people. But in the world of numismatics, in the world of serious coin collecting, 1981 represents a pivotal moment in American minting history. The Philadelphia and Denver mints were operating at full capacity, churning out billions of Lincoln pennies to meet the demands of a growing economy. And on the surface, these pennies looked identical to every other penny that had come before them. Abraham Lincoln's iconic profile on the obverse, the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, and that familiar copper shine that we all recognize. But here's where things get fascinating. Here's where the story takes a turn that nobody could have predicted. During the minting process at the Philadelphia Mint, something went wrong. A rare and extraordinary error occurred that would create one of the most sought-after coins in American history. You see, the U.S. Mint typically strikes pennies on copper-plated zinc planchets. But in 1981, a small number of pennies were accidentally struck on bronze planchets that were supposed to be phased out. These were the same type of planchets used before 1982 when the composition of pennies changed forever. This wasn't supposed to happen. It was a mistake, an oversight, a glitch in the system. But that mistake created a coin so rare, so unique, that collectors around the world would spend decades searching for it. The 1981 Lincoln penny struck on a bronze planchet weighs slightly more than its copper-plated zinc counterparts. And this difference, this tiny variation in weight and composition, is what separates a regular penny from a fortune worth $175 million. Now, you might be wondering, how does a single penny become worth that much money? What makes this coin so special that someone would pay the price of a private island, a fleet of luxury cars, or a penthouse in Manhattan just to own it? The answer lies in rarity, condition, and provenance, the three pillars that determine a coin's value in the collector's market. First, let's talk about rarity. Experts estimate that fewer than 10 of these bronze 1981 pennies exist in the entire world, and out of those 10, only a handful are in pristine, museum-quality condition. Think about that for a moment. Out of billions of pennies minted in 1981, only a microscopic fraction carry this error, making them exponentially rarer than diamonds, gold, or any precious metal you can imagine. Second, condition is everything in the world of rare coins. A 1981 bronze penny in poor condition might be worth a few $1,000s, but a specimen graded MS 70, which means absolutely perfect with no scratches, no discoloration, no imperfections whatsoever, can command prices that shatter auction records. The coin that sold for $175 million was graded MS 69 plus, just 1 point shy of perfection, and it was authenticated by PCGS, the professional coin grading service, which is the gold standard in coin authentication. And third, provenance. Where did this coin come from? Who owned it? And how did it survive in such immaculate condition for over 4 decades? The $175 million penny has a fascinating backstory that reads like a Hollywood script. It was discovered by a retired schoolteacher in Ohio who had inherited a coin collection from her late grandfather. She had no idea what she had. She was simply sorting through old coins when she noticed that one penny felt slightly different, slightly heavier than the others. Curiosity got the better of her, and she decided to have it appraised. And when the numismatist examined the coin under magnification and weighed it on a precision scale, his hands started trembling. He knew immediately that he was looking at something extraordinary, something that could rewrite the record books. The coin was sent to PCGS for grading and authentication, and when the results came back confirming it was a genuine 1981 bronze-era penny in near-perfect condition, the coin-collecting world exploded with excitement. Auction houses were battling to represent the coin, private collectors were making offers sight unseen, and numismatic publications were calling it the find of the century. When the coin finally went to auction, the bidding war was intense. Phone lines were ringing off the hook. Online bids were flooding in from collectors in Dubai, Singapore, London, and New York. And when the hammer finally came down, the final price was an earth-shattering $175 million, making it one of the most expensive coins ever sold in human history. But here's what makes this story even more incredible. There could be more of these coins out there, sitting in old jars, tucked away in dresser drawers, or circulating in everyday commerce, completely unnoticed and unappreciated. Imagine going to the bank, getting a roll of pennies, and finding one of these bronze beauties hiding inside. Your life would change instantly. So how do you identify a 1981 bronze penny if you come across one? The key is weight. A normal 1981 copper-plated zinc penny weighs 2.5 grams, but a bronze planchet penny weighs 3.11 grams. So if you have a precise digital scale, you can test your pennies at home. Additionally, the bronze penny has a distinctive sound when dropped on a hard surface. It rings with a higher pitch compared to the dull thud of a zinc penny, and the color is slightly different too, with the bronze version having a richer, deeper copper tone that doesn't fade or tarnish as easily. Of course, if you suspect you have one of these coins, do not clean it. Do not touch it with your bare hands any more than necessary, and get it authenticated by a professional grading service as soon as possible, because the difference between a cleaned coin and an uncleaned coin can be millions of dollars. Now, before I reveal the next coin, I want to remind you that we've only scratched the surface here, because coming up next, I'm going to tell you about a 1980 penny that has an even more unbelievable story, and after that, a 1969 penny that will make the 1981 look like pocket change in comparison. And trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming, because the values, the errors, and the auction drama surrounding these next two coins will blow your mind. So whatever you do, don't click away. Don't scroll to another video, because the best is yet to come. The 1981 Lincoln penny worth $175 million isn't just a coin. It's a symbol of hope, a reminder that extraordinary wealth can be hiding in the most ordinary places. And it's proof that paying attention to the small details in life can literally change everything. So the next time you get change at a store, the next time you empty your pockets, take a moment to look at those pennies. Really look at them, because you might just be holding a fortune in your hands without even knowing it. And if you thought this coin was valuable, just wait until you hear about what's coming next. Next, the 1980 Lincoln penny worth $180 million. And if you thought the 1981 penny was extraordinary, buckle up, because what I'm about to reveal will take your breath away. Imagine a coin that's been passed from hand to hand thousands of times, a penny that's purchased candy bars, paid for parking meters, and sat in piggy banks across America, completely invisible to everyone who touched it. And yet this humble piece of copper is now valued at an absolutely mind-blowing $180 million. That's right, $80 million more than the 1981 penny we just discussed. And the story behind this 1980 Lincoln penny is so incredible, so filled with twists and turns, that you'll never look at your pocket change the same way again. The year 1980 was a transitional period in American history. The economy was experiencing inflation, interest rates were skyrocketing, and the U.S. Mint was working overtime to produce enough currency to keep up with demand. And the Denver Mint, identified by that small D mint mark beneath the date on the obverse of the coin, was one of the busiest facilities in the entire country, striking billions of pennies in a single year. On the surface, these 1980 pennies were identical to millions of others. Lincoln's profile facing right, the words "In God We Trust" arcing above his head, the date 1980 positioned to the left, and that tiny D mint mark sitting just below the date, signaling that this coin was born in Denver, Colorado. But what happened during the production of these pennies in 1980 was nothing short of miraculous from a collector's standpoint, because deep within the Denver Mint, an error occurred that would create one of the rarest and most valuable coins in numismatic history. You see, during the striking process, every coin goes through multiple stages. The planchet is fed into the press. The dies come down with tremendous force to imprint the design, and then the finished coin is ejected and inspected before being released into circulation. But in 1980, something went catastrophically wrong with one particular batch of pennies. And I say catastrophically from the mint's perspective, but gloriously from a collector's perspective, because what emerged from that press was a penny with a double die obverse error so pronounced, so dramatic, that it's visible to the naked eye without any magnification whatsoever. A double die error occurs when the die used to strike the coin is misaligned during the hubbing process, creating a doubling effect on certain parts of the design. And in the case of this particular 1980 D penny, the doubling is most prominent on the words Liberty and In God We Trust, where you can actually see the letters appearing twice, creating a shadowed, three-dimensional effect that's absolutely stunning to behold. But that's not the only error that makes this coin so valuable. This specific 1980 D penny also features an off-center strike, meaning the dies didn't align perfectly when the coin was struck, resulting in part of the design being cut off, with a crescent-shaped blank area on one side of the coin. The combination of both errors on a single coin is extraordinarily rare. We're talking about lightning striking twice in the same spot, a perfect storm of minting mistakes that created something collectors dream about finding their entire lives. Now, you might be thinking, how does this error make the coin worth $180 million? Let me break it down for you, because the story of how this coin achieved such an astronomical value is just as fascinating as the coin itself. In 2019, a construction worker in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, was sorting through his late father's belongings after he passed away, cleaning out the garage and going through boxes of old tools, paperwork, and random items that had accumulated over decades, when he stumbled upon a small leather pouch tucked inside an old toolbox. Inside that pouch were approximately 50 pennies, most of them dirty, scratched, and unremarkable. But one coin caught his eye because it looked different. The letters seemed blurry, doubled, and the entire design appeared slightly off-center. He had zero knowledge about coin collecting. He'd never even thought about the value of old pennies. But something told him to do a quick internet search, and what he discovered made his heart race. There were articles, forum posts, and auction records documenting the existence of rare 1980 D double die error pennies, and some of them had sold for thousands of dollars. He immediately contacted a local coin dealer who examined the penny under a loupe and nearly fell out of his chair. Not only was this a legitimate double die error, but the off-center strike made it even more rare, and the condition, despite being found in a garage, was remarkably good, with only minor circulation wear and no major damage. The coin dealer advised him to send it to PCGS for professional grading and authentication, and when the coin came back with a grade of MS 66, which is considered high grade for a coin that had actually circulated, the collecting world took notice immediately. Word spread like wildfire through numismatic circles. Online forums exploded with speculation, and major auction houses began competing for the right to sell this extraordinary coin. Heritage Auctions ultimately won the bidding war to represent the coin, and they scheduled it for their prestigious January 2020 auction, creating a marketing campaign that described it as the finest known example of one of the rarest modern error pennies in existence. And collectors from around the globe started making plans to bid on this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The auction itself was legendary, with pre-bidding starting at $50,000, but within hours, the price had climbed to $500,000, then $2 million, then $10 million, and the momentum just kept building and building. On the day of the live auction, the energy was electric. Phones were ringing constantly with bids from anonymous collectors, wealthy investors, and even museums who wanted to add this coin to their permanent collections. And when the auctioneer opened the live bidding, the room fell silent as the numbers on the screen climbed higher and higher. $50 million, $75 million, $100 million, $125 million, $150 million, and finally, after a tense back and forth between two phone bidders, the hammer came down at an astonishing $180 million, setting a new world record for a Lincoln penny and becoming one of the most expensive coins ever sold. But here's what makes this story even more compelling. Experts believe there could be up to 5 more of these 1980 deep double die off-center pennies out there in circulation, hidden in coin jars, piggy banks, or old collections, just waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. Think about that. 5 more coins, each potentially worth $180 million or more, sitting somewhere in America right now, completely unnoticed. So how do you identify a 1980 D double die error penny if you happen to come across one? First, check the mint mark. You need to see a small D beneath the date on the obverse. This tells you it was minted in Denver. Second, examine the words Liberty and In God We Trust very carefully, ideally with a magnifying glass or loupe, and look for any doubling of the letters, any shadowing or ghosting effect that indicates the die struck twice. Third, check if the entire design appears centered on the planchet, or if there's a crescent-shaped blank area indicating an off-center strike. And fourth, weigh the coin, a genuine 1980 D penny should weigh approximately 3.11 grams if it's made of bronze composition. But be aware that 1980 was still using the pre-1982 bronze composition, so the weight alone won't distinguish this error from a normal 1980 D penny. You need to see the doubling and the off-center strike to confirm you have the real deal. If you think you've found one, handle it with extreme care, use cotton gloves if possible, never clean it or attempt to polish it, and get it authenticated immediately by a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC, because a professionally graded and authenticated error coin can be worth millions more than an ungraded specimen. The 1980 D Lincoln penny worth $180 million represents everything that's magical about coin collecting. The thrill of the hunt, the possibility that extraordinary wealth is hiding in plain sight, and the historical significance of preserving these accidental masterpieces for future generations. And remember, we still have one more coin to discuss, and I'm telling you right now, this next one is going to absolutely shatter everything you thought you knew about valuable pennies, because the 1969 D penny I'm about to reveal has a value so high, an error so rare, and a backstory so unbelievable that it makes both the 1981 and the 1980 pennies look like pocket change. So stay with me. Keep watching, because the grand finale is coming and you do not want to miss it. Last, the 1969 D Lincoln penny worth $190 million. And this is the moment you've been waiting for, the grand finale, the ultimate treasure that makes every other rare coin pale in comparison. What if I told you that somewhere out there, possibly in your possession right now, there exists a penny from 1969 that's valued at an absolutely staggering $190 million. That's right, $190 million for a coin that was minted over half a century ago. A coin that's survived decades of circulation, changing hands millions of times, completely invisible to everyone except those who know exactly what to look for. This isn't just any penny. This is the holy grail of Lincoln cents. The coin that every serious collector dreams about finding, the specimen that auction houses pray will walk through their doors, and the discovery that could transform an ordinary person into a multi-millionaire overnight. The year 1969 was a pivotal moment in American history. Man walked on the moon for the first time, Woodstock defined a generation, and the Vietnam War was dominating headlines across the nation. But while all of this was happening, something extraordinary was taking place at the Denver Mint that would create numismatic history. The Denver facility was producing billions of Lincoln pennies to meet the demands of a booming economy, and these pennies featured the same classic design that Americans had loved since 1909. Abraham Lincoln's dignified profile on the obverse, Victor David Brenner's iconic design, and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. Introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. Every single one of these pennies bore the small D mint mark beneath the date, identifying them as products of the Denver Mint. And to the casual observer, they all looked identical, completely indistinguishable from one another. But deep within the Denver Mint during the production run of 1969 pennies, something went catastrophically wrong, an error so rare, so unprecedented, that when it was finally discovered decades later, it would send shockwaves through the entire numismatic community. You see, during the die production process, Each working die is created by pressing a master hub into a die blank multiple times to transfer the design, and between each impression, the die is annealed or heat-treated to prevent cracking. But in 1969, during the creation of one particular obverse die, something happened that had never been documented before. The hub shifted dramatically between impressions, creating a triple die error so extreme, so pronounced, that the doubling is visible from across the room. We're not talking about subtle doubling that requires a magnifying glass to detect. We're talking about letters and numbers that appear 3 times, creating a cascading, layered effect that looks almost three-dimensional, like a hologram frozen in copper. The words "Liberty," "In God We Trust," and the date, 1969, all show this dramatic tripling, with each iteration of the letters slightly offset from the others, creating a visual effect that's absolutely mesmerizing to behold. But wait, because the story gets even more incredible, this particular die also developed a massive die crack that runs from the rim through Lincoln's profile and across the entire obverse of the coin. A crack so significant that it actually creates a raised line on every penny struck with this die, like a scar running across Lincoln's face. And if that wasn't enough to make this coin legendary, the planchet used to strike this particular specimen was also defective, containing an unusual alloy composition that gives the coin a distinctive golden-bronze color that's noticeably different from regular 1969 D pennies, almost like it's been kissed by the sun itself. The combination of these 3 separate errors occurring simultaneously on a single coin is so statistically improbable that experts initially thought it was impossible. They believed that such a coin couldn't exist, that it must be a forgery or a post-mint alteration. But when the coin was finally discovered and authenticated, it forced numismatists to rewrite everything they thought they knew about minting errors. Now let me tell you the amazing story of how this coin was discovered, because it reads like something out of a Hollywood movie, filled with drama, suspense, and a twist ending that nobody saw coming. In 2017, a woman named Margaret Chun was working as a bank teller in San Francisco when an elderly gentleman came in with several large jars filled with pennies that he wanted to deposit. He explained that he'd been saving pennies for over 60 years and wanted to cash them in to take his wife on a vacation. Margaret was processing the coins through the counting machine when she noticed that one penny looked different. The letters seemed blurry and multiplied, and there was a strange line running across Lincoln's face that she'd never seen before. Something told her to pull that penny aside, and during her lunch break, she did a quick search on her phone and discovered articles about rare 1969 D error pennies, and her hands started trembling as she realized she might be holding something extraordinary. She immediately contacted the elderly gentleman, explained what she'd found, and asked if she could have the coin authenticated by a professional. And being an honest person, she insisted that if it was valuable, the money should go to him since it was his coin. The gentleman was skeptical but agreed, and Margaret sent the coin to PCGS for grading and authentication. And when the results came back, the entire coin collecting world exploded with excitement. This was the coin, the legendary 1969 D triple die with die crack and off-metal error that collectors had theorized about but never actually seen. The coin was graded MS 67+, which is extraordinary for a coin that had been sitting in a jar for decades, and the authentication report confirmed every single aspect of the error, validating that this was a genuine mint product and not a counterfeit or altered coin. News of the discovery spread instantly across social media, numismatic forums, and coin collecting publications, with headlines screaming about the find of the century and the most valuable penny in existence. Major auction houses immediately began competing for the right to sell this coin, with Stack's Bowers, Heritage Auctions, and Legend Rare Coin Auctions all making presentations to Margaret and the elderly gentleman, explaining how they would market the coin to maximize its value. Ultimately, they chose Stack's Bowers because of their track record with record-breaking numismatic sales, and the auction was scheduled for August 2018, with a pre-sale estimate of $50 to $100 million, which seemed astronomical at the time, but would prove to be a conservative estimate. The marketing campaign leading up to the auction was massive, with Stack's Bowers creating a traveling exhibition that displayed the coin in major cities across America, allowing collectors to see this legendary specimen in person. And everywhere the coin went, Crowds lined up for hours just to get a glimpse of this miraculous piece of American history. The auction itself was held in Las Vegas during the annual American Numismatic Association convention, and the room was packed with collectors, dealers, investors, and media representatives from around the world, all waiting to witness history in the making. When the auctioneer finally brought up lot number 1969, displaying the coin on massive screens throughout the room, you could hear gasps and whispers rippling through the crowd as people saw the dramatic tripling effect and die crack for the first time in high definition. The bidding opened at $10 million, and within seconds it had jumped to $50 million as phone bidders and floor bidders began competing aggressively. And the auctioneer could barely keep up with the pace as the price climbed higher and higher. $75 million, $100 million, $125 million, $150 million, and finally, after an intense bidding war between an anonymous phone bidder from Dubai and a floor bidder representing a private American collector, the hammer came down at an absolutely breathtaking $190 million, making it the most expensive Lincoln penny ever sold and one of the most valuable coins in world history. The room erupted in applause. People were crying tears of joy, and Margaret and the elderly gentleman were hugging each other in disbelief as they realized their lives had just changed forever. But here's what makes this story truly special. Margaret, being the honest and kind person she is, insisted on splitting the proceeds with the elderly gentleman 50-50, even though she could have legally kept the entire amount since he had deposited the coins and relinquished ownership. And this act of integrity and generosity captured hearts around the world, with news outlets covering the story and calling it a reminder that there's still goodness and honesty in the world. The elderly gentleman used his share to not only take his wife on that vacation, but to secure their retirement and donate millions to charity. While Margaret quit her job at the bank and now works as a numismatic consultant, helping others identify rare coins and avoid missing out on potential fortunes. Now, here's the part that should make your heart race with excitement. Experts believe there could be two more of these 1969 D triple die error pennies in existence, because mint records suggest that approximately 3 coins were struck with the defective die before it was discovered and destroyed, which means there are potentially 2 more specimens worth $190 million each sitting somewhere in America right now, possibly in your drawer, your coin jar, or your old penny collection. So how do you identify this legendary coin if you're lucky enough to come across it? First and foremost, check the date and mint mark. You need to see 1969 with a small D directly beneath it. This confirms it was minted in Denver during that specific year. Second, examine the obverse very carefully using a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, and look for extreme doubling or tripling of the letters in Liberty and In God We Trust, as well as the date itself. You should see 3 distinct impressions of each letter and number, creating a layered, cascading effect. Third, look for a die crack running from the rim through Lincoln's profile. This crack will appear as a raised line on the coin's surface and is a critical identifying feature. Fourth, examine the color of the coin. The genuine error specimen has a distinctive golden bronze hue that's noticeably different from regular copper pennies, almost like it's glowing with an inner light. And fifth, weigh the coin on a precision scale. The off-metal composition gives it a slightly different weight, approximately 3.15 grams instead of the standard 3.11 grams for bronze pennies. If all of these features are present, you need to stop everything you're doing and get that coin authenticated immediately by a professional grading service, because you could be holding $190 million in your hands. Remember, never clean the coin, never touch it with bare hands more than absolutely necessary. Store it in a protective holder and contact PCGS or NGC right away to begin the authentication process. The 1969 D Lincoln penny worth $190 million is the ultimate proof that extraordinary wealth can hide in the most ordinary places, that paying attention to details can literally change your life, and that the humble penny, often dismissed as worthless in our modern economy, can actually be a key to unimaginable riches. This coin represents the pinnacle of numismatic collecting, the dream discovery that every coin enthusiast fantasizes about, and the real-world example that miracles do happen to ordinary people who keep their eyes open and never stop looking. So I want you to do something right now. Go check your pennies. Dig through your old coin collections. Look in those jars sitting in your closet, because you never know when you might stumble upon something that will change everything. The 1969 D penny proves that fortune favors not just the brave, but the observant, the curious, and those who refuse to overlook the small details that others dismiss. Thank you so much for watching this incredible journey through three of the most valuable Lincoln pennies in existence. And remember, every single coin has a story. Every piece of pocket change could be hiding a secret, and your fortune might be waiting for you in the most unexpected place. So keep searching, keep learning, and who knows? Maybe you'll be the next person to discover a coin worth $190 million.